This is me in 2014, baggy kit, 23 years old, with a max power output of about 300 watts for 5 minutes. And this is me today, trying to hold over 365 watts for 4 times that length, or 6 watts a kilo for 20 minutes to beat my all-time record. When I say trying though, I mean like really trying. But what kind of training does it take for an amateur cyclist to hold 6 watts a kilo for a third of an hour? And more importantly, would it even be possible? This was the day I was going to find out, and in today's video, I'm taking you along for the journey with me. You see, having ridden 250,000 kilometers over the past decade, there's not a lot I haven't ticked off. I've won races, a bunch of them, trained with the best riders on earth, literally, and even moved to the other side of the world to pursue cycling. Even after all of this, and even with everything I've learned, there is still one question that I'm yet to answer. How hard is it to reach a power number seemingly reserved for the pros? For reference, cyclists who've been riding for a couple of years might be able to produce 2 to 2.5 watts a kilo of body weight, and well-trained riders might even be able to get to 4 or even 5 watts a kilo for 20 minutes. For myself though, I wanted to set the bar high. Perhaps too high? Now the 20-minute test is one I've repeated each year since I got a power meter. In 2016 I hit 5.5 watts a kilo for 20 minutes, and by 2018, having moved to Europe, I got to 5.8. But that's where the number seemed to stay these past few years. No matter what I did, the ceiling seemed like it had been reached. That was until March of this year, where off the back of one of the best openings to a race season I ever had, I decided I needed to get the number done. I wasn't getting any younger, yet I wasn't ready to let the dream go. I rolled out to one of my favorite climbs and absolutely sent my way up it. I pushed myself as hard as I physically could for the entire 20 minutes, pretty much collapsed at the top, and yet when I finished the effort, I had only reached 5.9 watts a kilo on the day. Quite honestly, I was devastated. I missed the mark by a measly 5 watts, and in that moment, it was like my goal may never happen. So, like anyone with broken dreams and a hurting heart, I shifted my focus to other things. I rode for fun, won an ultra-distance bike race, I fell in love with a beautiful woman, spent 10 weeks in LA dropping Phil Guyman on bunch rides, and I learned to run. Oh, and I turned 35. Not the kind of age that helps when it comes to breaking all-out power records. It seemed like my 6 watt per kilo goal was further out of reach than ever. That was until a few weeks ago though, a full 9 months after my last 20-minute power test. You see, for me, I take my motivation from different places. Winning races is cool, not getting dropped by my mates is even cooler, but I have the most fun when I set myself a personal challenge and find a way to achieve it. So when I took delivery of a Chorus Giro and started scrolling around, one feature in the menu stood out to me, the FTP test, a 20-minute all-out sufferfest to find out exactly how fit you are. And in that moment, something twigged in my head, and I knew it must be time. 2025 was coming up and I didn't want to start the year without one last send. So what did I do? I spent the day writing a training plan and the next 2 weeks doggedly pursuing it. I brought together 10 years of my own knowledge. I prescribed myself brutal sessions from my coach John, and I included a workout available via the training catalog on the Chorus website for good measure. I locked myself in both physically and mentally and began training for the hardest effort of my life. But before I started my program, I needed a baseline. After months of non-specific training, I needed to know how close or how far I was from achieving my 6 watt per kilo goal, and to work out how much I would need to improve in the following 2 weeks. Alrighty, so back in my old stomping ground at San Martin's Calm here in Girona, where most people go and do their FTP tests, their 20-minute tests, ramp tests, lactate testing, come and do intervals during the year. There's always heaps of pros here. I've already seen a couple go back and forth. And yeah, I'm gonna go and bang out a 20-minute max test today to see what I can do. I have no idea what I am going to end up with. It's been so long since I've done one of these. Earlier in the year, as you would have heard in that intro, I set my PR numbers, but today I am going nowhere near that. And I think that I'm going to suffer a lot, but I'm going to go and bang this out, and I will show you guys on the other side. So I guess there's just one last thing to do, and that is to do it. If you guys have made it to here, can I just ask one quick favor? You guys just mind hitting the like button? Just whack the little like button there while I'm suffering. Cheers. All right, there's 15 minutes, 328 average. Let's see if I can lift for this last 5 minutes. All right, 333 watts, so lost about 30 watts. It's actually less than I was expecting, but man, that hurt just as much. That FTP test that I did at the start of the year, that was a brutal one. This one today, just as brutal. Never gets easier. You just lose some watts. Shit. Oofed. Alrighty, so training done, or not really training, that was my first FTP test out the way. I just got home from that ride. I did 75 Ks, about 2.5 hours of riding in total. As you can see with the chorus here, there's actually a whole bunch of stats on there that you can kind of flick through at the end of your ride, so you can see all your metrics from everything. And then you go through, and one of my favorite pages is actually the last page there, where you can see the battery usage for the ride that you've just done. So you can see how much battery you soaked up, but also how much battery you got back with the little solar panel there. On the top of the chorus, there's a solar panel, and it actually soaks up sunlight like a solar panel does, and it gives you back battery. So even though I used 2.2% of the battery on that 2.5 hour ride, I gained back 0.6%, which is super cool. A 2.5 hour ride, and I only used 1.6% of the battery in total. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this thing does over the next couple of weeks. So that's for further down the track. For the moment, it's time to go and recover, take the weekend to chill out, and then training starts on Monday. So with testing out the way and a baseline established, I took the weekend to recover. The way I'd planned out the fortnight of training was 6 hard sessions, 2 endurance sessions, 4 recovery days, and 1 day completely off the bike. I then planned to give myself 2 rest days, followed by a warm-up day the day before the actual test. Day 0 was simply about seeing where I was at, and that 333 watt number was enough to give me a power to weight ratio of 5.4 watts a kilo for 20 minutes, and when using the multiplied by 0.95 method to work out FTP, gave me a threshold of 316 watts. After that baseline test on Friday, and before training was due to start on Monday, I took the weekend to chill out. I did 2 rides that weekend. Saturday's ride was a nice little exploration in the Empordà to the north of Girona, and Sunday's was a 2-hour solo ride on one of my favorite loops. After a weekend of enjoyable riding though, it was time for school to start and for day 1's key session to begin. Alrighty, so it is Monday afternoon. It's Monday the 18th of November. So this is the start of my 2-week training block that I'm going to do here in the lead up to that FTP test. A little bit nervous, but I'm keen to crack on with my training. I've just ridden out of Girona this afternoon, and I've come round to the backside of Els Àngels, which is a very popular climb in Girona, a very popular spot for doing intervals. It's a climb of about 8%, quite steady as well. And the intervals that I'm doing this afternoon to kick off day 1 are 3 10-minute low cadence, high torque intervals. Now my coach John will be very proud of these ones. He loves the high torque intervals. So it's 3 by 10 minutes. I'm going to do them at around 85 to 90% of my threshold, so around 285 to 290 watts. Then I'm going to have a little 8-minute recovery in between each of those, and then I come down off the backside of Els Àngels here and out the flat area just where I am here. I'm going to do a 30-minute zone 3 effort, so around 270 watts or so, just a metabolic effort there. Yeah, keen to get into these, and then we'll crack on with a bit more training that I'm going to explain over the next few days. So let me go and do these intervals, and I will talk to you more in a moment. Okay, so after the fun of day 1's low cadence work, day 2 is actually a double session day. It started with a super enjoyable recovery ride to Lake Banyoles, about 25 kilometers north of Girona. Lake Banyoles is a must visit if you're ever riding around here, and in the autumn weather it was the perfect way to rest my legs. We rode for 2 hours and covered 50 kilometers, and then that afternoon I went for a light sunset run. Now, as you might have heard me mention earlier, throughout the summer I spent some time learning to run. This is a skill I've never had before, and alongside pushing 6 watts a kilo for 20 minutes, it's been up there on my bucket list of things to be able to do, to the point where it's now part of my weekly schedule. Running consistently has definitely had a positive impact on my muscles and tendons, which I've really noticed the last few months when going hard on the bike. This run was 50 minutes in total, and a really nice way to keep me moving for Wednesday's VO2 efforts. Alrighty, so it's now Wednesday. It's a couple of days after my last interval session. Today I am out on the front side of Els Angels on the Girona side. The back side the other day was a little bit steeper. The front side here is a little bit shallower. Today I'm doing some VO2 max efforts. So these are going to be 4-minute VO2 max efforts at around 365, 370 watts. I'm going to do 9 of them in total. So it's going to be 4 minutes on, 3 minutes off, 4 minutes on, 3 minutes off, 4 minutes on, and then 3 minutes off. Then you have a little 12-minute rest, and then you do that same set twice again. So the point of having the 4 minutes on is to get yourself properly into the red in terms of heart rate, and then you have the 3 minutes off that you don't fully recover from. So the point is to start the second one and then the third one in the set with your heart rate a little bit elevated from where it was previously. So I'll start this first one with my heart rate quite low, and then the second one a bit higher, third one a bit higher again, and then you have that rest. This is a session that I designed for myself years ago. I've been doing it for years and years, and I always enjoy it because it's pretty brutal, but I feel like you get some good gains from it. So I'm gonna go and do this little session here, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys more soon. Alrighty, 9th and final one coming up. Let's do it. Feeling this one. 1 minute left to go. Oh, that was almost just as hard as the test. Good numbers though, so happy with that. That's my 9 VO2 max intervals out the way. Wednesday, done. Alrighty, so just back from my Wednesday training just then. As you saw at the end there, I went pretty deep for that last one, but I was actually really surprised and really happy with the numbers. Hitting 408 watts average for that final 4-minute effort, which felt really good after having done 8 previous ones, and I just kind of ramped it up over the course of them. For anyone who's planning on doing these efforts themselves at home, one thing I'd say is definitely don't start your efforts too hard. Like with each one, start slow and then try and hit the number that you're aiming for at the very end, as opposed to like starting much higher and then kind of wilting throughout each interval. You want to kind of ramp up each one. That way, if you can do that, you'll know you've done a really good session, and you can also reevaluate for next time. Maybe you know you can go a little bit deeper from the start and you can end stronger at the end. But I think it's always good to negative split these things, as in get harder throughout, as opposed to starting too hard and just fading. So yeah, really happy with that session today. Tomorrow I got a different session. You guys will hear more about that in a second. And yeah, time to go and get recovering, and we'll get into some more training shortly. So with Wednesday's VO2 efforts out the way, it was time for Thursday and a long metabolic interval. As John puts it, the aim of this session is to stimulate type 1 muscle fibers and mitochondrial growth while improving fat utilization and lactate clearance. Although this session and the 40-minute interval I did wasn't strictly related to my 20-minute max effort, the extended period at around 85% of FTP, which for me is around 275, 280 watts, was more focused on capacity building. So I've just finished my little zone 3 effort there, my metabolic effort all the way up to Volta Catalunya, which is this really nice road. It's quite smooth and straight all the way out. It's got a few little rises, a few little descents, but it's a really good kind of road to do an effort like that because you can stay steady on the pedals. You never need to jam it to really get up any steep climbs. And then on the descents, instead of having to really ease off the pedals, you can kind of keep pedaling and hold a reasonable bit of power. One of the things I was going to mention is that I was just looking down at the chorus as I was going, obviously keeping an eye on my power, and it's got these really nice power, like colored power bands in it. So when you look down at the power, instead of needing to look necessarily at the number and try and work out, okay, am I in the correct zone? You can just look at the color of the background behind the numbers there. So for me, the zone that I was trying to be in, it's a green band, and then when you go too high, it goes orange, and if you go too low, it goes blue. So it was kind of cool to just be able to glance down, see the color, make sure I was in the right power band without having to be like, okay, 271 watts to 297 watts or whatever you're kind of calculating there. Figure out your zone. You can instead just see the color and you know you're there. Alright, now there is an elephant in the room that I want to address before I go on, and that is to do with weight loss and nutrition in cycling. Obviously, the lighter you are, the less watts you need to push to hit the same power to weight ratio. It would be extremely easy for me to get carried away in this pursuit of 6 watts a kilo and just simply try to lose weight to get there, but that is not the way I operate, and that is not the way that I have ever operated. In 2016, I weighed 63 kilos, and over the past decade, I've never fluctuated more than 2 kilos either way, except after ultras. Not only am I not a nutritionist or a dietitian who's gonna sit here and give you guys advice, but I simply have never chased weight loss as a personal goal. When I did my 20-minute max test in March, I weighed 61.9 kilos, and as you'll see at the end of this video, for the final day of testing, I didn't weigh much less than that at all. I honestly did not change a single thing about my food intake during this 2 weeks of training. Largely thanks to my girlfriend Natalie, I ate a regular healthy diet, and if I felt like a burger, I didn't say no to that. Unfortunately, I am not paid to race a bike, and none of the races that I do would see me winning if I lost a kilo or two. Even more than that though, I personally believe that most cyclists should focus on structured training rather than weight loss as their primary goal. So now it is on to day 5. So after 2 days of back-to-back intervals on the bike, Friday was an interval set on my feet. I did 2 by 4 kilometer repeats, gradually getting quicker with each kilometer, starting with a 3K warm-up, a kilometer easy in between each set, and a 3K warm down. As I mentioned earlier, being a beginner runner, I've noticed real gains in general strength from running when I'm back on the bike, and it's also just been a nice way to mix up my training over the course of this year. Once day 6 or Saturday came around, it was time for a 2.5 hour recovery roll, nice and easy with no structure at all, to get myself ready for Sunday and day 7. So with a bunch of load in my legs, day 7 session was going to be one that I found and tweaked via the Chorus website. If you jump on the Chorus website, you can find a whole range of training plans and workouts for every part of the season and for every kind of rider. You can search by activity type and training type, like swim, bike, run, or strength, and choose a workout that'll suit your level and goal. The workout I chose was the anaerobic inter-threshold development, firstly working your VO2 max capacity, followed by a couple of intervals at your threshold. You can use the Chorus website for this even if you don't have a Chorus device, but if you do have a Chorus cycling computer or a running watch, Chorus can give you a whole heap of data which you may find useful for planning out your own training. Alrighty, so just while I'm rolling along here in between my 2 little threshold efforts, I'm just going to point out one thing that's kind of cool. I just noticed on the Chorus app the other day that you can add a lap summary page so you can view your laps while you're riding along. So as you can see there, I've currently got 13 laps, and you can kind of see that you can see the numbers for them all. You can see average power, cadence, heart rate, all that sort of thing. What's nice about that is that if you're doing very lap intensive training where you're hitting the lap button a lot and you start to lose track of how many laps you've done because you might have gone into the red a few times, that lap summary page can help you out so you can see exactly what you're doing, exactly where you are, and maybe what you've got left to go. So I'm going to crack on with this last one, then I'm going to head home, and that's training for Sunday done. So with a strong opening week of training in the bag, my fitness coming up and my fatigue not yet through the roof, week 2 started with a day completely off the bike. That day happened to be my mate Ben's birthday. Now Ben is also a cyclist, and Natalie and I took the day to head up to Andorra to hang out with Bennett and celebrate with he and his wife Sarah. The next day we got up and headed out for an easy hour run in the mountains, which was a super nice way to kick off the week's activities. One of the things that you've no doubt noticed about this training plan so far is that none of the sessions were all that long. That's because it wasn't about building race endurance. It was about being able to crank out a strong 20-minute one-time interval. Part of why I failed in March wasn't to do with my lack of fitness, but more my lack of freshness to balance out the training. I had trained and raced substantially for 3 months straight when I did that effort, and on the day I didn't have that final percent that comes with fresh legs. This time round, that was my aim. Not overdoing it, not underdoing it, just listening to my body and finding that optimal balance. Alrighty, so back out here, it's Wednesday now. It is my first key session of week 2. I am out in some super nice weather today, and as you can see, I am back on the backside of Els Angels, so doing a lot of repeats on Els Angels for this training block. Today I have these Hopkins Torque Sprints, which I haven't done them for a long time, but I do remember them being absolutely brutal. They're 4 minutes, really low cadence, and then you stay in that same gear and just ram out a 30-second maximal sprint. So just working your legs in 2 different ways. You got the the big gear, and then you've got that like sprinting, like neuromuscular work as well. Going to be really hard. I'm going to go and do it, but it is a nice afternoon. So I'll see how I go with those. Got 8 of them, and yeah, it should be quite a combination of enjoyable and difficult. See how we go. Last one coming up. Okay, so with another key session finished off, day 11 was a recovery day in preparation for day 12. This recovery included a nice little hour ride at sunset and a gentle run in the evening before kicking off Friday, which was scheduled to be the biggest day of training in the entire fortnight. Friday started out with run intervals in the morning and finished with riding intervals in the evening. The run included 6 by 1 kilometer repeats at VO2 max, which for me is around 3 minutes 30 per kilometer. The ride that afternoon was 3 hours and 20 in total, with 2 by 20-minute intervals, including 4 30-second sprints per interval, one every 4.5 minutes. This is one of the hardest sessions I've done on the bike in the past few years, but it's got great return on investment for building FTP. And with the 20-minute max test coming up the following week, I wanted to go all in and just see what I could do. Alrighty, so it is Friday afternoon. I am back at my favorite spot here, San Martín de Calm, where I'm going to do my FTP test next week. This afternoon I'm doing some 20-minute efforts, just 2 of them. I've got these little 30-second spikes every 4.5 minutes. Definitely feeling it after this morning's run. That was a pretty tough run, so my legs are pretty cooked. So this is a big double day. I'm going to see how I go. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to hit the numbers that I want to hit. It's starting to get dark as well, so I am going to get these ones done and head back to Girona. Tomorrow I'm going to do a nice endurance ride. Then I'm going to need some good recovery. I'm going to do a few more efforts on Sunday and then recover for next week's test. So I'll go and do these, and yeah. Let's see. So with Friday's intensity slightly cooking me, for Saturday I wanted to have a slightly more chilled day. I didn't really realize it at the time, but Friday's sessions did more damage than I was expecting. I also realized that I hadn't really played around with the mapping function on the Jura, so we decided to do a nice ride to the coast to see how it would go. The coast loop in Girona is another must-do if you're ever coming here. Nat and I had a stop at the famous Dulce Piquica in Plachadaro, and again I am not joking when I said I eat what I feel like. As you can see, when you load a ride onto the Jura, it'll show you both the complete ride profile as well as the specific climb you're on, giving you stats like distance to the top of the climb and a colored gradient to show you what's coming up. After cruising the coast road, we wrapped it up and headed for home, getting there right on dark and right in time for Sunday's final session on the bike. Sunday was actually planned to be an interval day, but last minute I made some changes that I thought might benefit me in the long run. Alrighty, so welcome to Sunday. This is the final day of my 2-week training plan. Today I'm out for a nice little recovery roll. This is actually different to what I had initially planned for this Sunday ride. Today I was going to do some intervals. I had it on my plan, but all the fatigue from this week and the last couple of weeks has really started to build up. And I thought, you know what, I'm better off taking a recovery day. One of the big things I have learned over the past 10 or 12 years of riding and training is that when you're feeling really tired, you need to have a rest. Like, you need to listen to your body. There's no point, or there would be no point in me going out today and being like, even though I'm exhausted, I'm going to go and smash some more intervals, because not only would I not hit the numbers that I'd be aiming for, but I just end up feeling even more cooked afterwards. So I thought what I'd do today is I would take it nice and easy. I'm doing about an hour and 40-minute little recovery roll, not too many watts. Just cruising around in the nice sunlight there with the nice autumn leaves. And then I'm going to head home, and then I'm going to have a couple more days of very nice recovery, and then I'm going to do my test later this week, and yeah, talk to you guys more in a second. Alright, so as I mentioned at the start of this video, the day after that final Sunday's ride, I gave myself 2 complete days off the bike. I then gave myself 1 warm-up day, which actually ended up being a 2-hour gravel ride. That gravel ride included a couple of sprints and a small amount of time around threshold. I followed this same warm-up protocol the last couple of years before races, and it's always worked well. Then with my training out the way, my recovery out the way, and a warm-up day done, it was time for the day of the test. Now on this channel, I have made a lot of videos that include a lot of me suffering on the bike. I am no stranger to pain, and if you've watched any of my videos, you'll know this. This day and this effort rank among the top most difficult things I've ever done for a YouTube video. This is how it went. Alright, so it is Thursday morning, the big day. As you guys will know, now this has been a long time coming. Not only has it been 10 plus years of training and learning and testing and trying and failing and trying again and failing again. This morning I'm going out and I'm really hoping that I can put together pretty much the last 2 weeks of training, a bit of freshness and everything I've learned in the past decade and pull off something I've never done before at 35 years of age, and that's to hit 6 watts a kilo for 20 minutes. This morning I jumped on the scales and I weighed 61.4 kilos, so that means to hit 6 watts a kilo I'm going to need to do about 368 watts for the full 20 minutes, which will be more than I've ever done before. If I can do it, I will be stoked. If I get close, I'm gonna be devastated. Anything less than the actual number is going to really upset me. So I'm gonna go and roll into this and go and do it. Hopefully I can carry this off. Time to get my game face on, go and give it a razz. I'll see you guys on the other side. Six watts a kilo, baby. Got it done. Woo! 35 years old, still got it. My God. Whoa, that feels so fucking good. So stoked, just cracked over at the end there, 368 watts, but I could not have pushed another watt for a second longer. Oh my God, that was brutal. I'm so happy to get that done though. Oof. Time to get up and head home. Alrighty, and so there you have it. 10 plus years in the making since I first got a power meter and had no idea what I was doing, through to hitting 6 watts per kilo for 20 minutes, which by one measure makes me the fittest that I've ever been in my entire life. For anyone wondering, throughout the entire 3 weeks of filming this video, I didn't charge the Coros Giro once, and when I got home after that final testing day, it still had a full 35% of the battery remaining. A big thanks goes to Coros for motivating me to make this video, and I want to say a massive thanks to you guys as well. Hitting 60,000 subscribers this week has felt amazing, and I really appreciate all the love. I hope you all have a great start to 2025, and I'll see you guys all in another video soon. Thanks guys. Adeu.